Hello, fairy tale things, and welcome back to my swamp where we collect everything Shrek. Today's video is my favorite type of video. We're going to be talking about one specific piece of merchandise. It's based off of Shrek 2, the best Shrek film in the franchise, and it involves a mystery with a little bit of lost media, and perhaps best of all, this wasn't even a mystery that I started to unravel, but instead, you guys did. Yes, this video is all because of an awesome viewer of this channel named Kendall at Night who left a comment so incredible it blew my mind. You see, Kendall was reminiscing about reading the Shrek 2 storybook at Toys R Us. Back in the day, this would have been spring of 2004 when the movie came out, and noted something peculiar at the end of the book. And it was so amazing that not only did it blow my mind, but I had to make a video on it because it unravels a mystery that has more questions than answers. So stick around, this is going to be a wild goose chase, a goose chase so wild, it'll put Fifi to shame. Fifi was the name of Rumpelstiltskin's goose in the fourth Shrek movie. You remember that one, right? Let's open up the book on this mystery, but before we do, we actually should talk a little bit about the book itself. It's a nice hardcover storybook retelling of the movie. I feel like every 2000s animated kids movie, especially the DreamWorks ones, had these really nice hardcover storybooks. They were usually always published by Scholastic, and they were sold at the Scholastic book fairs. I have many fond memories of buying movie storybooks. I think I had some of the Pixar films like Cars or Wall-E. Let me know in the comments if you had any of these. But this one is for Shrek 2, and of course, it has something very curious at the end of it. But first, let's start with the beginning. We have Shrek and Fiona. She's in her white dress from the honeymoon, so that's visually interesting. And they have Far, Far Away in the background. This all fits with the vibes of Shrek 2. Look, there's the onion carriage going to Far, Far Away. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? No, we are not there yet. We still have some more pages to go before we figure out this mystery. But what's interesting is that it does say it's illustration by, well, I am not going to attempt to say that. You can quietly say the name of that studio to yourself because I wouldn't even know where to begin. But this studio right here, they illustrated the book. And you're thinking, wait a second, what do you mean illustrations? I mean, this isn't drawings, this is just the movie. Well, not exactly. If you actually look closely at Fiona here, she has some, brushwork on her skin, and this page itself is a composite. We don't actually see the scene laid out like this. When we're seeing the page squire here, this guy here, he's actually played by Kelly Asbury, the director of Shrek 2. We see it from the POV of Shrek, and then I think we see a little bit of their backs, if I'm not mistaken. So what they did is they took Shrek and Fiona from a different shot, and they composited them in here. Really, the whole book has these composite shots where they've traced over characters with paintwork, and they've stuck them on different scenes, so there is some illustration work required there. But yes, for the most part, these are just scenes from the movie with a little bit of touch-ups. And I'm not going to go page by page because you've seen Shrek 2 if you're watching this video. But okay, this page here, this is actually a pretty interesting one because it isn't any scene in the movie. This is a complete composite shot. They did not use any of the actual footage from Fiona meeting the fairy godmother, because this is clearly based off of a promotional render of fairy godmother. And then Fiona here, this isn't even from the scene because she's in her white dress when she should either be in either her green or the gold dress that fairy godmother gives her during this musical sequence. So that's pretty interesting, right? But it's not lost media. This isn't some sort of lost scene from the film. This is something completely original. Obviously, they needed a scene from the Fairy Godmother musical sequence, and for whatever reason, they didn't have one to trace over or use. So instead, they got a little creative here, and they made this nice little composite shot. And even though Fiona's dress is incorrect, I think that gets the job done. And it's funny Fiona's dress is incorrect here because that is actually going to be the topic of our mystery, as you will see. So, enough of the anticipation, right? The suspense is killing me. I hope it will last. We just need to get to it. But But, like, okay, look at Shrek here. Look at his shirtless body. You can see all of the brush work here. And I am wondering, like, did someone actually painstakingly trace over this entire thing? Because in today's world, this wouldn't require any effort at all. You could, like, make it with an iPhone filter in a second and a half, right? But that tech obviously didn't exist back then, so I do wonder how they did this. But, you know, they're definitely based off of the 3D models, because look at the level of detail in Fiona's room, how accurate it is. No artist would have been able to painstakingly recreate Shrek 2 that well from memory or reference photos. It's just not possible. But this one here, like, okay, this is an interesting composite shot. We have a scene from the movie, Shrek and Donkey, when they meet Puss, but then we also have Puss in Boots here, who is clearly based off of a promotional render, one of the most common promotional renders of Puss in Boots that we often see on merchandise in this channel, except if you zoom in closely here, they've actually redrawn Puss's face so that he is looking in the direction of Shrek and Donkey. That's pretty interesting. They've also corrected Puss's face because in the original version of this render, he had a curly mustache that was cut from the film before it was finalized. So a lot of the Puss merchandise features that mustache, but obviously it's not in the final film. It was removed and he was given proper whiskers, as he has here. So that's pretty interesting. But I didn't bring you here to talk about Puss in Boots' original whisker design. It's something much more exciting than that. Shrek 2 continues on, right? Shrek becomes handsome. He transforms into the human version. And then Fiona also transforms, right, for the big finale. Oh my god, what on earth happened to the characters here? Why is Shrek's torso so big? Why is Donkey making that face, man? Look at that noble steed Donkey. I think everyone here has had a little too many bottles of the leche, as Puss in Boots would say. I can't get over that donkey face, man. That is the face I make when the video won't process to YouTube and it's just stuck on uploading for like 8 hours until I randomly walk in some Starbucks and the video just uploads. Story of my life, guys. Anyways, yeah, there's some artistic license taken with these three here, which is pretty interesting. And then it looks like Doris was also given a little bit of traceover work. But then funnily enough, if you look in the back, there's just like some Shrek 1 gnome models. So yeah, this is what I mean when there's like some weird composite work here. Like we obviously have an illustrated Shrek with the 3D models behind him. It's so funky looking. And hey, look, this mystery is a good excuse to highlight some weird Shrek media, but it is time we finally got to the big moment. Dun 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 dun, drum roll. Well, not quite. We have this scene, right? And the fairy tale creatures, okay, right? And then we finally make it to the ball, right? Okay, I want you to pay close attention to Fiona's outfit here. So when we get to the far, far away ball, Fiona is in this sparkly, glittery dress, right? This formal wear. That's important, trust me. And then we have Mongo, who weirdly has some red eyes. This is like a telltale sign that something wrong is coming up, that things are off. Look at Mongo's eyes. Why are they red? He's got hyper-realistic eyes. This is a Shrek creepypasta now, guys. This is the part where Mongo appears as a plushie in your bedroom. Quick, look behind you. It's the hyper-real Mongo plush toy. Here to haunt you. Okay, this video actually is shipping after Halloween, so that's real timely. Come on, Austin. It's Thanksgiving by the time you're uploading this. Don't you want to be thankful? Well, you should be thankful because I am about to give you a Shrek mystery, and you will be thankful that you know this mystery, but probably not the answer, because it's going to get very weird. Are we ready? Okay. Godmother, Harold, end of the movie. I love how they put the whole final battle sequence without any of our main characters present. That is honestly impressive. And then finally, the last page of the book, Shrek and Fiona transform into their true selves as the clock hits midnight. Fiona chooses to sacrifice her perfectly princess form to be with the ogre she fell in love and married with. End of story, all is well, right? Until you look at this page for a little longer. Now, I'm going to give you, the viewer, a few seconds to really study this page and tell me what is horribly wrong with it. Because I know Shrek 2 very well. I have probably seen Shrek 2 more than any other movie, or dare I say piece of media in my life. Okay, it is time to address the elephant in the room. they're in the wrong outfits. Shrek is an ogre here, yet he is still in his human, handsome form attire. See, I have this helpful little figure here to show you what I'm talking about. And then Fiona here is in her ball gown dress still, the white sparkly one, when she should be in her green dress, the Shrek 2 version of the green dress, the one with the poofy sleeves. Yet, she's in the white dress here. That is very, very peculiar. And I have seen Shrek 2 a lot, and that was always something that bothered me with the movie, is that somehow the spell knew to revert both of their outfits back to the ones they were previously wearing in their ogre forms. I always thought they should have stayed in these outfits because it's a ball, you know, it's very formal and fancy, and wouldn't it look nice and also fit the themes of the movie for Shrek to be an ogre, the ugly ogre, in the handsome outfit, to really show those persnickety far, far away folks, you know, how it's done, that he can fall in love with a princess. And for Fiona, too, like, she loses her cool, sparkly, pretty dress because the spell broke. I always thought that was a little strange, and here we can see that they clearly animated an alternate version of the ending of the movie where they both became ogres and were in their formal outfits. Now, there is always the possibility that the artist who traced over these pages altered the outfits, but I think that's really, really unlikely. Why would an artist go to that trouble? It just doesn't make any sense to me. There's not much of trace work here, but you can see it in the skin, and if it is just a filter, like I had speculated, then there would literally be no way to alter the outfit like this. And I mean, it was pretty significantly altered here. And even if it was altered, why? Why would they go to that effort? It looks like to me that DreamWorks sent the people illustrating this book, that studio I mentioned earlier, they sent them an earlier version of the finale that had both of them in their original attire. I mean, this just blew my mind. So, as soon as I had seen this, and what Kendall said was completely true, and I was like, what? I decided to check out some other Shrek media to see if they had mentioned this change. So, thankfully, I happen to have another Shrek storybook. This is the talking Shrek storybook. See when you press the little top here? Wow, isn't that amazing? And then this one is actually drawn by a different artist, if you would believe that. Honestly, there is a lot to say on this particular book, so I'll save it for another episode, another time. But for the sake of figuring this mystery out here, we can skip to the end and see that Fiona is now in her honeymoon dress. Well, that doesn't really help things out. Why is she in the honeymoon dress here? It doesn't even look like they're at the far, far away ball here. It's like the front of the castle and it's daylight. Is this the morning after? Like, how odd is that? And then we get to the far, far away ball, right? And then, inexplicably, Fiona is in her wedding dress from the first Shrek movie. So, what? I am just gonna assume here the artist did not have proper reference, since these books are made before the movie came out, so they just used the reference materials they had. Fiona's got a lot of different dresses, and honestly, they all can get a little confusing, so I understand if, like, someone who's not familiar with Shrek had some reference photos from Shrek 1, maybe the production of Shrek 2, how they would get things mixed up. But that still doesn't explain this one. This is a little more than a mix-up. This is weird. I was so desperate, I checked out the novelization to see if they mentioned anything about the clothes switching. And curiously, they do not mention that. They just say they were back to their former selves. Well, great. That's pretty vague. Thanks, Shrek 2 novel, for keeping the mystery going. So then I literally just spun around in my chair and I stared at my insane Shrek collection, and I noticed they actually did make some toys of Fiona in her ball gown dress. Specifically this one here from Burger King. She was a top, and she spun around like tops do. And curiously, this toy is actually a little different from what we see on screen. If you compare it side by side, you'll notice this version of the dress actually shows shoulder, and the sleeves are a little longer. We can confirm this was the intent because I also have another ball gown dress Fiona top. Yes, they made two. This one was from Europe, and she also has shoulders showing and longer sleeves. So this was the original intended design of the dress. And not only were there two tops of Fiona in the ball gown dress, but there was actually a third, a chase variant top from Burger King that was rarer than the others of her as an ogress. Now, from what I can gather, this variant was only available in the United States. Sorry, other countries, you guys just had the one Fiona. And yes, this is Ogress Fiona in the ball gown dress. Now, this could have been just Burger King being a little cheeky and trying to give you more to collect, more reasons to come to Burger King and buy food. But I don't know, man. A lot of work was put into this sculpt. You can see she's a little curvier around the stomach and body, like Ogress Fiona is. And the head sculpt is really good. Dare I say, this is one of the best figures of Fiona in her ogress form that we ever got. And it's based off of a scene that isn't even in the movie, because she doesn't wear this dress as an ogress. But this toy does lead me to believe that at some point during the film, she was intended to wear this dress as an ogress. And if that's not all the evidence you need, we can actually look at the concept art workbook released for Shrek 2, called Shrek From the Swamp to the Screen, and behold, Fiona is clearly depicted as an ogress in an early version of the ball gown dress. And something cool about this early version is that you can see she clearly has large fairy wings protruding from her back. Because originally, the ball at the end of the movie was going to be a bit more of a costumey ball. How about that? It would have had some more whimsical elements, like Fiona dressed as a fairy. But we did not get fairy ogress Fiona. We didn't even get ogress Fiona in this dress. It was cut from the movie. And now for the million-dollar question. Why did they do it? Why did they reanimate it and cut the ending differently? Well, we are Shrek detectives, and I have a couple of theories I can float by you. The first theory I have is that from a thematic angle, it does make a bit more sense for Shrek and Fiona to be in their ogre outfits during the end of the movie. Think it over for a moment. Shrek 2 is a rejection of LA and Hollywood culture. It is not about the glitz or the glamour. It's about true love and being comfortable in your own skin. And it makes more sense for the ending for Shrek and Fiona to be comfortable literally in their own outfits and not in a fancy, glitzy ball gown or, this Shrek outfit. Like, look at this thing, man. This stuff is Prada, probably. It ain't cheap. So it would be a little hypocritical for a movie to be a rejection of Beverly Hills and then have Shrek and Fiona at the end of the movie all dolled up in Rodeo Drive-styled outfits. I understand that. Another reason that's maybe a bit more cynical is maybe from a branding angle, they wanted the characters to end the movie in their iconic outfits. Shrek in his vest and Fiona in the green here. Because the ending of this film is, a big dance party musical number. It's very memorable and iconic. And even at the end of it, all of the characters jump into the air, strike a pose, and freeze, like one of those 80s movie endings. And I can understand why some executive somewhere might have thought, wait a second, if we want this to stick with the audience members, the characters literally freeze for the last frame, then it should be them in their iconic outfits and not something unfamiliar, We want Shrek to look a certain way. We want Fiona to look a certain way. Shrek is a mascot character, and going by characters like Mickey Mouse and Sonic the Hedgehog, I just know they're very particular with how these characters look, especially if they're the type of character that exists to sell tons of toys and theme parks. And Shrek is one of those characters that has amusement park rides and plush toys and action figures. And I get why they'd want him to be in the iconic outfit, even though I would have rather have seen him in this outfit. I think it would have been neat. My third and final theory actually takes us to the home media release of Shrek 2. If you'll recall, when Shrek 2 released on DVD and even VHS, it included an extended ending that played after the credits of the movie, called Far, Far Away Idol. It was a parody of American Idol, complete with Simon Cowell. It's funny as all heck, and still one of the best things to have ever come out of the Shrek franchise. Although Far, Far Away Idol came out after Shrek 2, let's say theoretically it was in production during Shrek 2's production. I mean, that does make sense. It had its own team, spearheaded by Matt Mahaffey, of all people, the lead singer of the band Self, but that's a story for another time. I bet a DreamWorks executive was like, wait a second. If Far, Far Away Idol is going to be marketed as this big thing, then Shrek and Fiona really do need to be in their regular outfits during the finale. That way, in Far, Far Away Idol, they are also in those regular outfits. Otherwise, they would have been stuck, and they would have had to have kept those unique outfits for Far, Far Away Idol. Now, something interesting I did find while researching this video is that on the promotional material for Far, Far Away Idol, Fiona is actually in her honeymoon dress for some reason. Not the ball gown white dress, but the slightly different dress she wears during the honeymoon. I don't know what's up with that. Maybe that was the only model they had for that render, but truth be told, Fiona's dress does change a lot throughout the movies, and I don't think that would have been a point of concern. I actually personally think Fiona's dress was probably changed at the last minute. My main issue is Shrek's outfit. I don't think they would have wanted Shrek to wear this handsome Shrek outfit as an ogre for very long. And if they had gone through with this ending, then yes, Shrek would have had to have worn this outfit during Far, Far Away Idol in order for it to connect. I mean, that's one way it could have gone. Another way is, again, they could have just not liked it and reanimated it, or just maybe this whole page is an original traceover and it was just made for the storybook. But I actually think that's very unlikely. I am led to believe that there is an alternate cut of Shrek 2's ending we've never seen that includes Shrek and Fiona in their ball gown outfits. Unless, of course, they're not actually in the royal ball outfits. Plot twist, dun dun dun! Okay, let me explain. Shrek obviously is fine, but if you've been paying close attention to Fiona here, you might notice something very peculiar about the little bit of the white dress we see. You see, Fiona's ball gown has these little pulls all the way up and down. They even sculpted them on the toy. And here we don't see any of the pulls. We see a gold trim and what looks like the start of a poof. Wait a second, this is the honeymoon dress again. Look at the way the shoulder poofs. That's totally it. Austin, did you just lead us on a wild goose chase? No, I still think my point still stands, and let me explain. Take a closer look at the dress here. It does look like the honeymoon dress, but if you look at this trim here, it looks like it's gold. Could just be the lighting, but it certainly looks gold. And the honeymoon dress has a green trim. I think this is a placeholder model. We did discuss that the royal ball dress went through a number of design changes, so what if this model wasn't ready yet, and they needed it for stuff like the storybook, products being produced, so they used a placeholder model. In this case, they took the honeymoon dress, and it looks like they may have recolored it with some gold highlights, and you know what? Nobody will notice. I bet you, the viewer, didn't even notice. You probably thought this was the ball dress the entire time. But if you look at what we see here, there's no little pulls. I mean, it clearly isn't it. The shoulder is just different. This dress looks like it poofs outwards, like a lot of Fiona's dresses, and the royal ball dress does not. So I think this is a placeholder model. I still think my point still stands that this was supposed to be the royal ball dress, but they just didn't have it. Actually, if anything, this is only more evidence because this being a pre-production scene, not finalized, would add credence to my theory that this was a cut scene from the movie. This is something a little earlier than what we saw in the film. This is a non-finalized version of this scene where Shrek was in his royal ball outfit and Fiona was supposed to, but they didn't have it ready, so they used a placeholder model. So in conclusion, if you're not following this craziness, I believe in the original ending of Shrek 2, Shrek and Fiona, when they transformed back into their ogre selves as the clock hit midnight, were originally going to wear their outfits, and I believe this scene was actually animated to some degree. I mean, just think about it. Why would it be in the storybook? Why would it have a toy? And most importantly, why wouldn't it be in the movie? It always just didn't make sense to me that the spell would know how to change Shrek and Fiona's outfits. And also, for the sake of having a nice finale dance sequence at the ball, you know, Shrek and Fiona should be dressed up like everyone else. It would have been really nice to see Shrek as an ogre in a very classy outfit here. Like, we never see Ogre Shrek all dressed up. The only time I could think of is, I don't know, maybe the Oscars? He wears a tux when he showed up at the Oscars, but, like, canonly in the movies, he just wears that vest. And I don't know, maybe somebody at DreamWorks got cold feet and they were like, no, this is a little weird. He needs to be in his vest for the ending. That way audiences know from the ending of the movie, that's what Shrek looks like. That's the freeze frame shot, that iconic shot that's used for all sorts of marketing stuff and for Far, Far Away Idol. I mean, the ending of Shrek 2 is very iconic, and I think even when they were making it, they knew how beloved that ending was going to be, and how much of that ending was going to be used for promotional stuff, whether it's commercials or, you know, this freeze frame, again, that the movie ends on, is used for all sorts of stuff. You know, maybe they were like, we need Shrek and Fiona to be in their regular outfits during the end sequence. But I don't know. I just thought this whole thing was very fascinating. Kendall, thank you for posting that comment. You truly blew my mind, because I think I've looked through this storybook before, because I wanted to make a video just talking about some of the unique quirks in here, like, you know, Mongo's eyes being red. I mean, that's a fun little arrow there. But, you know, I actually did not notice this here. It's pretty fascinating and interesting. So, let me know what you think in the comments. I would love to hear from you guys. Do you think there's a lost version of the Shrek 2 ending? And also, why do you think the ending may have been changed? I was just completely fascinated by this whole thing. I didn't dig super deep into this. Like, what does it look like on the storyboards? You know, did the storyboards for this sequence include them in these outfits? I would be curious to know that. If anyone has, you know, any sort of connections to people who worked on this movie or just know anything about its production that I don't, please let me know in the comments. As always, I want this to be an active conversation because I love talking weird Shrek lore with you guys. And who knew a Shrek storybook, something as simple as this, would open up this whole can of worms. But that's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching. And from the Far, Far Away Ball, have a happily ever after. A huge special thanks to our YouTube members, Jay Bipper, Antonio Bocina, Sailor Laws, Don Tizzle, The Layered Ogre, Binks, Pizza Topping, M, Boa Usta, Shotgun Justice, Bonzario, Telephone Wire, Jamie, Tucker Time, Love Monster Fanatic, Griffin Newman, SMO3, Jidjip, The Luke Rosati, Pladley, Aaron, J. Florence Jones, and Art Yam. And a huge special thanks to you for watching the video all the way until the end.